planning.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday, May 20th regular council meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, so we do have people online as well as in person here. So I'm going to call the meeting to order and start off the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Osaley, and Georgina Islands First Nations. Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of the lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. I'm going to move into a moment of silent reflection for council and staff to quietly reflect on our duties to the community that we represent. Thank you. I'll ask everyone to make sure your cell phones are off or placed on vibrate so it doesn't disturb the meeting. And I'll remind council of declaration of pecuniary interest. If it arises, you can declare it then. Next on the agenda, we have minutes from the council meeting, a regular council meeting on May 6th. Followed in order. I'll look for a motion that we receive those minutes. But moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, we're going to move right into delegations here. The first delegation we have here is Matthew Phillips, Senior Project Lead, Unity Design Studio, with regards to the community center floor fencing. Welcome, Matthew.
Good morning, Council. Thank you, Mayor Martin. Okay. Thank you again for having me this morning. This is regarding the Community Center Phase 1 project. We're specifically focusing on interior floor finishes and giving the council an update as well as a decision tool to move forward with the specific floor finish. Also brought physical samples that we can kind of pass around throughout the presentation if we need to. There you go. So topics for today, I want to briefly talk about the approach to the floor finishing options we've dealt with the town staff on a regular basis. Then we're proposing floor finishes for the basement floor, the ground floor. Ground floor has multiple options, which I'll explain. And then the second floor as well. And then we'll go into any comments, questions, and council approval. The approach to the floor finishes, working with town staff, we wanted to understand the goals of the facility, and we went with the goals provided to provide low maintenance, slip resistant flooring, and long lifespan for a brand new flooring facility. So you have a lot of people coming in, there's a lot of maintenance for the flooring, so we want to keep within budget, but also give you longevity. So we focused in on four major flooring, luxury vinyl tile, which bulk of the building consists of, porcelain tiles, epoxy flooring, which is essentially it's a painted on flooring and it has a grit for slip resistant put into the floor or the paint, and that's usually in your service areas and in building service rooms as well. And then rubber flooring would be your kind of sports flooring relative to the arena. So the proposed flooring going from basement to ground floor. So we're in the basement level now. What we're looking at here is a small area of the limited construction that we're focusing on in the basement. So we have the brand new elevator. The elevator floor would be proposing to be porcelain tile. We have to use your existing machine room just to the north. We're proposing epoxy flooring, so that's if water or something gets on the floor, it's easily maintainable. It's more service related spaces. The corridor itself is staff corridor where you also bring the epoxy flooring into there. And then the public area with the barrier-free bathroom and the multi-purpose room is a brand new luxury vinyl tile that we'd had this kind of distinct notion in time on the floor that would be new and then your existing floor. So the top left image is your existing flooring and downstairs it's a glued on luxury vinyl tile. We would just join up with that with a brand new luxury vinyl tile at a flush accessible space. For the ground floor, there are essentially three options. We're looking for council's approval on. This is option one, where the entire addition and renovation, so everything kind of in the black hatched are brand new walls, anything in the gray hatches is existing that we're not touching. The existing lobby, the brand new washrooms, the offices would be all tile. Yeah, same thing with the addition, the lobby. Coming into the existing or the brand new vestibule would be all tile. And then the canteen, the storage, and the exterior barrier-free washroom, that would, for all options, would strictly be epoxy flooring because for exterior washroom, we want to keep it very nice and clean, easily movable with epoxy flooring. And then typically for canteens, we usually use epoxy flooring as well. The orange line or the heavy lines that are kind of just adjacent certain walls, those are proposed locations of accent painted walls. And we had some options or the proposed option of an accent wall. We're focusing in on the Hawks colors of orange and blue, and we're looking at the Hawks orange color to facilitate those accent walls to bring those colors to life in the facility. Option two is essentially 90% of the renovation and the addition side would be rubber flooring. Minus the brand new vestibule, we recommend just doing porcelain tile for that because it's a kind of acclimatized space. You're going in and out always in a hot and cold space. And porcelain tile works better with that sort of climate changes. Same thing with the canteen, the storage, and the exterior washroom. We would propose keeping the epoxy flooring. And then same thing with the elevator, always porcelain tile. But then the corridor, the new lobby, the renovation of the existing lobby and washrooms would be rubber sports flooring. I should mention that the option one of porcelain tile, the cost is about half the cost of the rubber flooring. Right now, in supply and install costs is higher for rubber tile. Option three is essentially both option one and two, as the existing renovation side would be rubber and the addition brand new would just be porcelain tile essentially within the lobby and the corridor space. And then there's a separation between the existing lobby and brand new lobby with a sliding door and a brand new wall to separate those four finishes. And the purpose of that is if you can still use your existing space. If you had to, from a program perspective, go into the bathroom, skate some, but we're trying to prevent that with these options regardless. So the other piece to this option is the washrooms would have porcelain tile. So it's just the lobby space and corridor spaces where it be the rubber flooring. So it reduces cost and but still provides you rubber flooring as well. Going into the second floor, it's kind of similar to the basement. We're a very small area of construction. We're essentially bringing the elevator up into the floor in any areas that require restoration due to that construction. We would just put luxury vinyl tile. It's a very small area, so but it'll have an interesting contrast between going from the elevator to a brand new luxury vinyl tile and then going into the community spaces. Essentially, that what we're looking for is council approval specifically on the ground floor options between option 1, 2, or 3. The basement floor finish and second floor are kind of basic in a way that it provides brand new floor finishes, but within your budget as well. But it's mainly option 1, 2, and 3 for the ground floor that we're looking for council approval and input. That is my presentation.
Okay, thank you for this. Your last sentence there about keeping within budget, that's the big thing here, is we're working within the budget that we had. Dave's listening with his ears perked, could he help us get that grant? So we gotta make sure we're not living beyond our means, but so it's nice that you provided options, but the big thing here is the durability and the practicality for the floorings that are going to be picked there. And I'm not a flooring guy, so I'm going to rely heavily on a recommendation. But is there any questions from council? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just further to the mayor's point. You made the comment that the rubberized flooring was a little bit more expensive than the porcelain. Like, is there a ratio there? Is it twice as expensive, or because we don't have any numbers here in terms of the cost, so which is going to be a major determining factor in terms of.
Through you, Mayor Martin. It's a great question. We were provided with the construction manager a budget price so they went out to a local company in Peterborough who installs and supplies flooring. They provided supply and install cost for the rubber of about $34 a square foot. And for the porcelain tile, it was half that, just under $15 a square foot. So the porcelain tile, just to be clear too, it's within the Class C cost estimate budget that Morlock Construction has provided in the past. So my personal recommendation would be to go with the tile to be within budget. You still have all 3 pieces hitting your goals of long lifespan, low maintenance, and slip resistance as well.
Sorry, just a follow-up. So that would be option 1 of all porcelain tile, or option C of half rubber, half porcelain? Like, is the only one that falls within our discretion in terms of the grant is option A? Are you telling me, like, if we go to option B and C, we might not reach that threshold? Like,
through your Mayor Martin, you would be within range, but all tile would bring you closer to or within your budget. Thank you.
Authority and then council.
Through your chair, what's the warranty and life expectancies on each one?
Through your Mayor Martin, they differ per material. We typically, within a specified product, we recommend minimum 2 years. But you always get 1 year with the supply and install with the Morlock Construction, but each material is different. If I can provide the town staff specifics on that afterwards, I can.
So through you, member, what about maintenance? So with tile, is there grouting, and do we have to see that every 20 years, or maintenance is?
Through you, Mayor Martin, maintenance is kind of typical to what the process you're doing now. It's kind of mop and soak and clean. The grout nowadays is high grade, so redoing is long ways away, like somewhere of 5 to 10 years of regrouting, but it's really depending on your maintenance, but also the company that installs and that provides the product provides a very clear operations and maintenance, how to keep it clean without having to retrofit it in the future.
So for today, like if council wants to go and take a look at them, it's up to them. But if you're looking for a motion today, like I say, it's we're not flooring experts, but it sounds like you're saying budget, the option 1 is for sure to stay in budget. If I had 1 and 3 down as in my notes, but if 3 is out of the question and we're gonna go over budget, I think they're both, good choices. We have rubber, one doesn't, we have rubber in the dressing room area, which is the main area with skates and things like that. So the other areas, I think anything will work as long as it's practical for cleaning and things like that, and gonna stand up to the wear and tear, which I'm sure porcelain will. So it's up to council here if you're feeling comfortable with the choices you have here. Are there any more questions? Go ahead, Kathy.
Sorry, through you, remember, back to the porcelain, so if somebody drops their skates on it, it's not gonna crack?
Through you, Mayor Martin, I could promise that, but as far as porcelain tile is concerned, it is heavy duty. And it's thicker than your ceramic tiles. With dropping anything, there is obviously a risk to any sort of flooring or porcelain tile.
Okay, follow. So how close are we between 1 and C? Because I like the idea of C where we can do a mixture where we've got, for the kids dropping stuff or whatever, safety wise. I like the idea of 3. How close are we in money?
Through you, Mary Martin, from a budgetary perspective, you're roughly 30 to 40,000 over.
Oh. Say that.
Just on flooring costs alone specifically, not just overall costs.
That should help a lot in the decision.
Materials nowadays, through you, Mary Martin, my apologies. It is expensive so the porcelain tile is right now, that is a Canadian product, so it's been.
Do you mind showing us which one's the porcelain tile?
If I may.
Yeah.
Fantastic. No.
You get your skates here,
Definitely.
I dropped them on there.
Shouldn't be out there with their skates on.
Yeah, that was, sorry, just for clear, that's option C, that is $40,000 over.
Through you, Mayor Martin, yeah, it was kind of the mixture of all these materials.
I'm guessing option B is way over if it's all rubber, right? Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
As much as there's 3 options as far as, and I think they're all good, like, personally, porcelain, like Jerry said, the skate thing out there, like when we had tiles out there, the last thing you want people with skates, but I mean, with porcelain, hopefully they wouldn't wear their skates on it anyway, and they would have skate guards on, so, it's, I think when we're running that tight on the budget already, personally, I think option 1 is what we need to be looking at to keep this moving. So if somebody wants to make a motion.
Make a motion, we go with option 1.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb that we go with option 1. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Clement. Any other questions? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the other one that I presented, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matthew. We'll be in touch.
I think he's got to check what's today, but. So, anyways, our next delegation, MPP Dave Smith. Thank you for coming, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor Martin. I appreciate that. And I'm here as the MPP, not as the parliamentary assistant for finance. This is my first time back to council since the election in February. So I thought I'd give a quick update on some of the things that we're doing provincially and then open it up for questions from all of you. Obviously, our budget has just been introduced. It was a little bit delayed because of the election. It is the largest budget in Ontario's history, about $230 billion is what we are projected to spend. There is a deficit projected of 14 billion, just a shade over 14 billion. We have moved our pathway to balance out by a year because of that. And it is all a reflection of the uncertainty that we have because of what's going on with the Republican Trump administration in the States. The threat of tariffs has thrown a lot of industry into a lot of turmoil. We're seeing some layoffs already for it or because of it. So we need to make sure that we were doing some things that protected companies, protected jobs, made sure the workers were going to be made whole. A couple of key highlights on it. The Skills Development Fund has been increased significantly. It's about $2.5 billion that we'll be spending on skill development this year. We've also allocated some money to ramp up some of the training centers on it. The expectation is that we can retrain some people who may find themselves in a position where their industry is significantly negatively impacted by tariffs. And we can retrain those workers to be working someplace other than where they may have been. We have some legislation that has been introduced that would change some of the rules around layoffs and temporary layoff time periods. The concept of that is to allow for some certainty for both the company and the employee. At present, it is 15 weeks in general. After that 15-week period, you're considered permanently laid off. There is a provision for 35 weeks. We're extending that to 52, so that anyone that's in an industry that is affected by tariffs that may have to have a temporary shutdown still has the ability to reopen again and can reach back out to those employees, and those employees have the ability to come back in without any kind of a penalty. It is done. That one change will be done in conjunction with the employees themselves, so they have the option of extending the temporary layoff period to that longer time period for them if they wanted to come back to that industry. So a couple of things in there with healthcare. Obviously, again, it is the largest healthcare budget that we have ever had. It's well over $90 billion this year. We have a $1.8 billion fund that is specifically earmarked for the project that Jane Philpott is working on, and that is to increase primary care across the entire province. It's a seismic shift in primary care and how we're dealing with it. Previously, and the current model is that you have a family doctor that's rostered, or you're rostered to them, and that is your primary care. We're going to a team-based model instead, so that it would be physicians and nurse practitioners and other allied health. At the moment, if you're sick and you have a family doctor, you would go to that family doctor, and that family doctor would have to see you to refer you to someone else in it. It may be that you don't actually need medical care. You might need some mental health supports, or you might, in my case, you might have to go to the diabetes clinic. And what it requires right now is a referral from a physician. And some of these changes that we'll be making are so that that extra step is no longer required. In a team-based environment, you would call into the office to make your appointment. The nurse or receptionist who's answering the phone would ask the question, what is it that you're looking for? And if it's appropriate to see the family physician, then your appointment would be with the family physician. But if it makes more sense for you to see the nurse practitioner, or it makes more sense for you to be referred directly to the diabetes clinic, then you would go to the diabetes clinic instead of having to go see the family doctor, have the family doctor do the referral. It's all done as part of the team instead. And that's the approach that we'll be taking as we move forward. The expectation is that everyone who wants to have primary care will be in a position to have primary care within 4 years. We have opened up to make it easier for doctors and nurses to come to Ontario to practice. We're the first province to recognize your medical license if you're licensed anywhere in Canada. And this is kind of the irony and the stupidity of how the system previously was. And again, Ontario is the only province at the moment that has made this change. If I had 3 students attending medical school at Queen's University, all sitting side by side in every single class, writing exactly the same exams, being evaluated by the same professor. If one registered in Ontario, one registered in Manitoba, and one registered in Quebec, although all 3 went to Queen's, they could only practice in each of those provinces. They could not practice across the province. So the gentleman or lady from Manitoba, although educated at Queen's University in Kingston, would not be allowed to practice in Ontario or Quebec prior to us making that change. And we've made the change, so now if you have a license anywhere in Canada, we will recognize it immediately. You have 12 months to get your license transferred to Ontario. At present, it takes 3 days to have that license transferred to Ontario. We think that this is one of the ways that we can increase the number of physicians. We have increased the number of physician spots at the university by 402. So we are training more doctors. One of the challenges we have with that, though, is it takes between 5 and 8 years, depending on when you enter the medical program, to become a doctor. So when we first added more positions, that was in the budget 2019, 2020, 21 was the first year that the universities increased their enrollment by 50. Those doctors graduate this year. So we have more coming into the system. On infrastructure and transportation, we have expanded the housing enabling water fund. So there'll be another round of opportunities for increased water and sewer capacity, and it will cover the cost of underground infrastructure. Previous programs up until 2 years ago did not cover the cost of underground infrastructure, so you couldn't pay for the water piping to be going to another area for it. That will be eligible now as part of it. And we have made some changes to how the building code is being implemented. It'll be a single building code across all of Ontario. Some of the municipalities have decided to add on to it. That will no longer be allowed. It will be the Ontario Building Code is the Ontario Building Code. For a place like Havelock, that's probably not going to make much of a difference, but I'll give a perfect example nearby. Peterborough Homes is building some homes in Norwood. Peterborough Homes is also building some homes in Peterborough. Theoretically, Peterborough could add some things onto their building code and say that that home that you're building in Norwood could not be built in Peterborough. Or Norwood could do exactly the same thing. That home that's being built in Peterborough could not be built in Peterborough, or sorry, in Norwood. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. When you're a developer who is putting in subdivisions in multiple communities, why would you have to have that exact same house treated very differently from one community to the next? And what we're saying on this is that no, that's not the case, that the Ontario Building Code is the master. And if it meets the Ontario Building Code, it meets the Ontario Building Code and you can build it. And if a municipality wants to add something on, I'll give a very specific example of that. There are municipalities who have said that all new builds must have an electric vehicle charger. But there's a difference between a Tesla electric vehicle charger and everyone else's electric vehicle charger. So which charger has to be put in? And in some cases, they're saying both. What if you never have an electric vehicle? What if you're a senior who doesn't even own a car, but you want to buy a townhouse in a adult-oriented complex? There are many people who do not have vehicles at all. And why then would they be forced to pay $10,000 extra to have 2 electric chargers for the 2 different technologies that there are? We believe that that's something that you as the individual consumer, when you're buying the home, can make the decision. Do I want to have that put up in my house or not? And if you don't, then why are you being forced to pay for it? And that adds additional cost onto it. This doesn't affect Havelock because you don't have development charges, but there's some guidelines and rules around development charges and what is appropriate for it and what the development charge can be used for. What we're seeing in some municipalities across Ontario is that the development charge is being calculated based on some future need. The municipality can borrow against the development charge fund that they have to pay for something other than what the development charge was originally for. There's no requirement for them to pay that back. So what we're seeing in some communities across Ontario is that they'll be paying $150,000 as a development charge for a new home. And it is the consumer who pays for that. Don't kid yourself, it's not the builder. They pass that expense on to the home buyer under the guise that they're going to be putting in a park or they're going to be putting in an arena. And then they decide not to do that. And they use it to put in, say, 14 pickleball courts someplace and take out a couple of ballparks. Hypothetically speaking, of course, I would never say that that was a bad idea for any other community to do that. In terms of other funds that we have, there's a number of grant opportunities that are opening up, and I expect that we'll have the results for the community fund very shortly through the Ministry of Sport. Looking forward to being able to make some of the announcements on that. I can't give you details on who is getting the funding yet, and I'm sure that there'll be a request because you were just talking about some of the added costs for the arena on that. And I think, and Bob can correct me on this, but I think we're finally coming to a resolution on Fish Hatchery Road.
Yes, we're very,
Finally.
I'll bring a report to the next meeting.
How many days, Dave?
I stopped counting at 2,511 days, 6 years, 10 months, 4 days. That's when I stopped counting on that. That was about 3 weeks ago. So, but it has been, for something that is really as simple as it is, it has been such a bureaucratic nightmare to try and come to a resolution on it. What I will endeavor to do though is find a way to get you qualified for another grant somewhere else to pick up that what I believe is a very nominal price now. You can probably pay for it out of my pocket, but that wouldn't be appropriate. I know that you guys have some questions for me. I won't ramble on too much longer, but I'll open up the floor for any questions that you might have.
Okay, open up the council. I have a couple of questions. Go ahead first.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I just had a question. Thanks very much, Dave, and congratulations on your election. Nice to see you back. Kind of around what you're talking about with healthcare. There's a number of communities, ourselves included, that have gone about the doctor recruitment on their own. So I don't know what kind of model that you're setting up here at the province, but in terms of funding, well, is there a model that you're looking to go forward with? Or because the way I see it is, I don't know if you're going to try and do this from on high in terms of at a province level. I think personally, having gone through this somewhat, that it's probably better done by the communities themselves with a little bit of help from the province in terms of checks. So I'll just leave it at that in terms of, I don't know.
Sure. So it's a question that comes up fairly frequently. Why am I not bringing doctors to this area, to that area? At the provincial level, we can increase the pool of doctors, but with the exception of the Learn and Stay program, with Learn and Stay, we will cover the cost of tuition and books for someone to go to medical school. And in return, they have to commit a year for every year they're at university to that community. But that community is a very broad base. The one that comes to mind right now is with Kingston, Queen's University, because they have a medical school. They're part of Learn and Stay. You could effectively go anywhere between Brockville and Bowmanville as part of that catchment area. So it's very, very big. With the Northern Ontario Medical School, that one is based obviously in Northern Ontario, and the size, the catchment area for that is roughly the size of Germany. So it's very big. I can increase the pool of doctors at the provincial level, but each municipality then has to sell themselves on why a doctor should come to that area. I don't believe it would be appropriate for us to point to a physician and say, you must move to this community. Whether you like it or not, if you're going to be a doctor, you must move to that community. Because I would never do that. It would never be accepted with any other position. I couldn't say to a bricklayer, for example, I'm sorry, you have to move to Timmins because we need bricklayers in Timmins. You cannot be a bricklayer anywhere else in Ontario. We would never say that with someone with a grocery store. We would never say that with any other job. So I don't think it's appropriate that the province dictates where doctors and nurses have to practice. We will increase the pool, but it is up to the individual municipalities then to find ways to attract them. When it comes to the funding, there's a negotiation that's done between the province and the Ontario Medical Association on what are eligible expenses, what are not eligible expenses, and how much they can charge the province for it. So kind of in a nutshell, if you're doing either fee for service or you're set up in what's called a fit or a faux, there are funds allocated to cover your overhead. Now, I know that there are some communities who are offering to cover some of the cost of the overhead, which then ends up going back into the doctor's pocket. Or purely hypothetical, but if a community was to pay for the medical center itself and perhaps the administrative cost, that's already calculated into the fees that the doctors would get. If you are a doctor who rosters your patients, so you're in a fit or a faux, the expectation is if you have 1,500 rostered patients, the amount of money that's given to you without ever seeing any of them is what it would cover all of your administrative costs, all of your overhead is covered if you have 1,500 patients. If you have less than 1,500 patients, then not all of those expenses would be covered. What we're seeing in some other communities outside of Peterborough County that have taken the approach that they will have a clinic set up and they will cover the cost of the clinic. When the doctor comes in, they're not taking 1,500 patients. They're taking a smaller amount, in some cases as low as 700. And what they're doing is they're saying that this gives them more work-life balance, that they don't have to work as much. They perhaps don't have to work Fridays or Mondays or whatever it may be. And they reduce what their clinic hours are to give them more time off because the expenses are already covered. And it then becomes the balance then, what does the community need and want? And what does the doctor want? And what we're seeing in those communities where they are doing that, they're needing to bring in significantly more doctors, about 1.8 doctors, to cover what previously a single doctor would have covered. So it's a slippery slope to go down. I'm not suggesting that it's the wrong way to do it. It's the right way for some communities, but perhaps it's not the most efficient way. And I'm not suggesting the doctors are doing something that they shouldn't, because I very much value their abilities and their professionalism. But I think for any of us, if you can make the same amount of money and spend more time at home, more time with your family, you're probably going to take that option where there's no impact on your income, but you don't have to be at work as much and you can enjoy the rest of your life that much more.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I understand where that's coming from. In terms of that, I had another question there, but it just kind of dropped out of my brain. So I'll go to the mayor. I know he has a few questions for you.
I'll
think
going with council. Council got any questions for Dave? Go ahead, Jerry.
Chair, mine's not on healthcare, mine's on policing.
Yep.
Ontario Provincial Police. Let's dwell on the word Ontario Provincial Police. Why is the expense offloaded to the municipalities?
So in 1867, when Canada was formed, there was a division of jurisdictions between provinces and the federal government. And municipality is a creature of the province. So when municipalities were created, there was also a division of the jurisdictions there. And at some point between 1867 and 1890, policing, the decision was made that the local municipality would be responsible for law and order in their area. The Ontario Provincial Police, the Ontario represents the jurisdiction that they lay charges. Same thing with the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They have jurisdiction across the entire country. They can lay charges anywhere in the country, but the Ontario Provincial Police could not go into Quebec or Manitoba and lay charges. And likewise, Durham Regional Police is responsible for Durham. They could come to Havelock as a police officer. Perhaps they were driving from Durham to an event in Campbellford or Belleville, and they decided to take Highway 7 and they saw a crime being committed. They could pull over, they could arrest, but they would have to contact whoever the jurisdiction is that is responsible for policing in that area. In this case, the OPP, and the OPP would have to be the one that lays the charge. So the Ontario Provincial Police is simply the region that they're able to lay charges. It is not that it's the responsibility of the province for it. It's simply where they're able to lay charges. Now, each municipality has the ability to decide on who is going to police them. You are not forced to use the OPP. If you wanted to open it up to tender, perhaps the Peterborough Police would be willing to do it, or Quinty would be willing to do it. Or you could set up your own municipal police. If you set up your own municipal police force, you're going to need probably 12 to 14 officers to cover the 24/7 that you'd have to have. You'd have to have 5 supervisors and a chief. You would have to have a building for them, obviously, some administrative staff, some communication staff. And realistically, you'd be looking at about $4.5 million a year in salaries for the staffing that you'd have to have. You'd have to have a minimum of 4 vehicles, probably because of the area that we're in. You're going to have snowmobiles, ATVs, 4-wheel drive vehicles, as well as, in all likelihood, a couple of boats. I would estimate that your first year startup would cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 to $8.5 million to do it, and between $4.5 and $5 million a year to operate it if you had your own municipal police force.
Well, that was quite a sermon.
One of the things that you're looking at too.
No, we have two bills. One is our cost to maintain, and then we get the incident cost.
Yes.
Okay, and I know the government helped us with it this year.
Yep.
But how can we as a community control the incident cost? Because you can't control.
Stop committing crimes.
Pardon?
Stop committing crimes. Every time, so the OPP charges you a base amount for a certain amount of coverage.
Yeah.
But every time they have to bring other resources in, they do charge you for those resources.
That's right. Yeah.
You could try and change your contract to include all of that. I would almost guarantee.
Good luck with that.
That it would increase the cost significantly.
There is no latitude in the you get the contract, you sign it, you send it back. That's the way the system works.
Unless you decide to go to tender, which other communities have.
No,
Lakeville,
No,
for
it's not
example.
what a tender. I'm just talking about, we have a catch and release program.
That's federal. That's nothing I can do.
Oh, I thought we had friends in Ottawa now.
It's a liberal government.
Well, yeah. So that what you're saying is can't be changed then.
I can't change the bail reform on.
So there's nothing the province of Ontario can do on the criminal side.
We are responsible for provincial offenses, not for criminal code. Criminal code is the federal government. Bail is federal government. That's not.
So we have no lobby power with the federal government. And I guess
You can make a request,
And-
which we have for multiple years. But it is 100% the jurisdiction of the federal government. And if they choose to do something better.
okay, that's fine. Then the second part of the question is, I think this must be a provincial thing. We set up a new police board.
Yes.
Okay, what was the purpose of that? It does nothing but cost us more money as a municipality.
Actually, it's reduced cost for you.
Okay, tell me how.
Well, to start off with, in Peterborough County, we had 8 municipal police boards originally.
Mhm.
So Chief Galeazza, just as an example, would have had to go to 8 police service board meetings, which meant that somebody would have to backfill for him back at the police service. He now attends the single Peterborough County one. But the operational cost, yes, those have gone up. The cost of doing business, it has gone up. Salaries have gone up. The cost of fuel, the cost of vehicles, all of those things have gone up. And that's reflected in both your incident cost and your base cost.
Thank you.
So we are on a contract and that does help us. If we didn't have the contract that we have now and we went with the other option, the reason we did it is to keep us from these spikes. And we've had a lot of things going on around here in the last 6 months. If we didn't have that contract, we'd be paying a fortune for the extra policing that we've needed. So we do have that's the reason for our contract that we have right now. So, and Deputy Mayor Webb is on our police service board, so he would hear all of that stuff at the board meeting. So, but any other questions for Dave?
Hi to you, Mayor Martin. Hi, Dave. Congratulations on
Thank you.
your bid. Awesome. Just a quick question about the doctors again, because you've said all this information and I'm trying to process it in my head. So a doctor will come and if they don't do 1,500 patients, they don't get the money to pay for, you know, the equipment or the cost of everything? Is that my understanding of it? If they take lower patients, then they don't
Yeah,
get
so-
that extra money?
So essentially, for every patient they have rostered, they receive a direct payment from the province for it. It's X amount of dollars per patient.
Right.
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head that they get per patient, whether they see the patient or not. And then when the patient does come in, they do receive funding fee for service
Okay.
for it. That's why some doctors will say you can only talk to me about one issue at a time. You have to make another appointment if you have two things that you want to talk about. Some don't. At 1,500, and it varies across the province. Obviously, your operating cost in Havelock is lower than your operating cost would be downtown Toronto. You're not paying as much for rent for a building. So 1,500 roughly is what the average is across the entire province. If you have a roster of 1,500 patients, the fee that we pay you per patient before you see anyone is enough to cover your operating cost, the cost of your building, your heat, hydro, and all of those things.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other questions? I'm same thing, medical. You talked to a couple of weeks ago at our mayor's meetings around the some of the changes, so I was aware of that. And so later on our agenda, we are moving on with a project that's next door to us to try and help our community out. But it actually sounds exactly the same as what the province is moving into over the next 4 years, other than I don't think the province is funding this one. This one's municipal level, a lot of input, which that's the part I'm struggling with. I don't think we should be into the doctor thing, but unfortunately, with the way things are, we've had to do that. So it's looking like with what we have later on the agenda that we're looking at an agreement. And I'm hoping as you move over the next 4 years that this model sounds exact same. So I'm hoping it might fall into what you're looking at developing. Maybe just tidy it up a little bit so it fits completely in, because it's not exactly what you're talking about. So so that being said, I hope, in the future, you've always been helpful for Havelock-Belmont-Methuen over your time on as MPP. The other things are wastewater and all these. We have several grants out there right now or looking for some help, and you've helped us in the past. And without these grants, it's hard for us to grow. And you're hearing that probably everywhere you go. We can't do it on our own, so we're really relying on the province. So with these wastewater and water grants to help us get some capacity over there, it's crucial. And we have a water bill increase coming up here later in the agenda too, possibly. And if we don't grow, the people that are carrying that system, it's not sustainable. So hopefully we can get some help by development, and without the water and sewer help, we won't be able to grow. So keep an eye on that. And if you need anything, message me. I'll make sure you've got all the information that you can. That's what you always tell us. Make sure so you can do your part at Queen's Park. And if there's any, we'll make sure that you have all the information. So
the reality is, for any municipality, there's only two ways you can increase the total amount of taxes that the municipality has. You either increase the tax rate for the local residents, or you grow your tax base. And in order to grow the tax base, you have to have water and sewer available to them. And we recognize that. If we could ever get to a position where Havelock has the opportunity to bring in a major employer, perhaps one of what used to be part of the battery supply chain, if we brought in a company that perhaps needed, let's say, 500 acres of land, for you as the municipality, you're charging a higher tax amount to a business than you are to the residents. And your cost to maintain it is lower because, let's face facts, if you've got a 500-acre factory, you're not putting sidewalks in there. So you don't have to maintain them. You don't have to to build them. You don't have to worry about snow removal or sanding them for ice. You have one very big hookup for water and sewer, but if you did a 500-acre subdivision, you would probably have 2,500 or 3,000 connections to the water and sewer, which again increases your overall maintenance costs. So if we can find a way to bring an employer here that exceeds the size of the total number of people that live in Havelock, it would be a great reduction of property taxes for the residents. And you do have a couple of things going for you. Obviously, Highway 7 is a great transportation corridor for you, and you have the rail lines. Now, I recognize the rail lines aren't in great shape. We've been nudging the federal government for years to try and address that. But I think Havelock is in a great position that you could see some very positive growth, because you do have a water and a wastewater system here in a small community. You do have a good transportation network, and you're close to a couple of urban centers that have the potential to have people who could commute. So happy to continue working with you, Jim, and Mayor Martin, and find some way to bring some of that industry here.
You mentioned transportation. That's my final thing is a few years ago, we talked about transportation. Since we lost the Greyhound and things on Highway 7, everybody's limited here to get around. So if there's ever any express costs or something we talked about in the past, something to help people move around to get to the city or get somewhere without a car, we need to keep working on that. Because, you know, it's crucial for a lot of people around here that if you're relying on a taxi to go to Peterborough for some sort of a operation or just a visit, it's like $150 round trip, and it's not, you can't do that. So if you can keep working on that, that would be appreciated, because I do hear it all the time. Transportation is a big problem. So
I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly on that. We are still working with Metrolinx on it. There is still the proposal for an express route that would go from Havelock to Peterborough to the 407 Young new subway when it is complete. But that's not going to be done until probably 2028, 2029. I've been told by the Ministry of Transportation that if we had employment opportunities that were lost because we didn't have a good transportation network in terms of moving bodies, that we would be moved up on the pecking order, so to speak. So if we had an opportunity, and I've argued that the 128-bed long-term care home is one of those options, they'll need about 140 people working there. That would be a lot. That would be almost 10% of the population of Havelock. I can't imagine that everyone is going to live in Havelock that works at the long-term care home. So finding an effective way to have public transit that could come perhaps from Peterborough, perhaps from Campbellford or some other community that is a little bit larger than Havelock to bring staff in, I think it's well worthwhile. We just haven't hit that critical mass of people yet that makes it financially viable for them to do it. But we are still working on it.
thank you.
They want, we'll build them the houses here.
Yeah, you know,
We'd rather keep them in our community than have them commute here, so that's what we're looking at.
of all of the municipalities that are in this riding, Havelock is quite possibly the easiest for me to work with. Pretty much every idea that I come up with Jim, with Mayor Martin, on our regular meetings, his answer almost invariably is, okay, so how do we make that work then? It's a refreshing change from perhaps another larger municipality that their answer is no to everything.
So, well, if there's no other questions for MPP Smith, I'll do it the right way too. So, yeah, so thank you very much. And you know what, maybe in the fall, if there's a chance, you can come back again. There's lots of good information comes out, and it'd be nice if we could make this more regular. So
Absolutely. So the fall economic statement should come out the end of October, beginning of November. So we could schedule something after the fall economic statement if you wanted, or we could do it in September, October, and you can give me some feedback on what you think should be in the FES.
okay, we'll be in touch and see what works best. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Motion to receive the delegation. moved by Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor? Carried. So, next, we're gonna move into some zoning bylaw amendment, and we have three on the agenda today, so this is just look for motion to go into public meeting first. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Clement, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay, this is a statutory public meeting held under section 39 of the Planning Act. Any person may attend the public meeting and or make verbal or written representation either in support or in opposition to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Please keep your video off, microphone muted during the meeting until the chair invites comments regarding the planning matter. If a person or public body does not make oral submission or public meeting at the public meeting or make written submission to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person or public body does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal. In the opinion of, unless it's in the opinion of the tribunal, there is reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. If you wish to be notified of the passing of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen. So I'll turn it over to you, Samantha.
Good morning, Council. This is one of the first of many presentations today. So this is a zoning bylaw amendment application for 27 Fire Route 42. The subject property is located on Round Lake and accessed on Fire Route 42, owned by Rosemary Davis. The agent on the file is Colin Darling. The subject property is approximately 0.31 acres in size. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of this report is to present for the consideration and requisite approval of council an application to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaws amended in order to permit the redevelopment of a single detached recreational dwelling unit while also introducing certain site-specific regulations. The applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing seasonal residential dwelling in a deck and construct a new seasonal recreational dwelling in the general location of that existing dwelling unit. The new seasonal recreational dwelling will not be located any closer to the shoreline and will be located slightly further away from the shoreline than the existing dwelling. The proposed dwelling will have a ground floor area of approximately 78 square meters or 840 square feet. There is a current holding tank on the property that is to remain to service the new proposed dwelling. However, as you can see in the image on the left, there is a small storage shed that is actually located on top of the tank that will need to be removed as part of the application. Any proposed redevelopment on the subject property does face constraints due to the undersized lot fabric, the irregular shaped parcel, and the location of that existing holding tank. Slide, please. The zoning bylaw amendment application is requesting to permit a reduction of the minimum required setback between the dwelling and the high water mark from 30 meters to 11.46 meters for 37 feet, and to decrease the minimum front yard setback from 21.3 meters to 11.46 meters. The zoning bylaw amendment application is also requesting to permit the new seasonal residential dwelling with an interior side yard setback of 2.82 meters at one location on the south side of the dwelling and 4.36 meters on the other side, where 6 meters is currently permitted. Next slide, please. The application does represent a general improvement to the site through the increased setbacks to the shoreline. Following our review and assessment of this application within the context of the relevant land use planning policies, it is the township's planning opinion that the subject application conforms to the County of Peterborough's official plan, the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen's official plan, the township zoning bylaw, and is consistent with the provincial planning statement. Planning staff can confirm that notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act and mail notice was provided to all homeowners within 120 meters of the subject site, and a property sign was posted. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. I'm going to ask 3 times anybody in opposition of this application, followed by 3 times in favor, and then we'll open it up to council. So for the first time, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Third time, anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Hearing none, is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is the applicant here? Okay, do you have anything you wanted to add to it?
Morning, Mayor Martin and council. We're really happy with the day after all the diligent work we tried to do over the past many months. And very exciting day for us. The report, the due diligence presented, hopefully through the report, can help with some that we've been able to present and have you understand the nature of the proposal in its entirety. I don't know if there's anything I could add beyond that, and I'll refrain from blathering on too much. If you have any questions of me on a technical matter or personal questions for Mrs. Davis, we'd be glad to answer them.
And we'll believe that we will come back to you. Okay. Second time, anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? And third time, anybody wishing to speak in favor? All right, then, so with that, I'll open up to council. Deputy Mayor Webb, go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Motion to move the recommendation, Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. So,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we don't get much applause. Do we?
You should stay. For me, that one more time before you leave. Have a good day.
President Welter, thank you so much.
All right, so the next application here is Evans, Samantha, you.
Perfect, thank you, Mayor. This is a zoning bylaw amendment application for 124 Fire Road 85D. The subject property is located on Jack Lake and accessed on Fire Road 85D, owned by PME Investments Paul Evans. The agent on the file is Kevin Jeway. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of this report is to present for the consideration and requisite approval of council an application to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw as amended in order to permit the redevelopment of a single detached recreational dwelling unit while also introducing certain site-specific definitions and regulations. The subject property currently does not have shoreline frontage as there is a crown open road allowance along the shoreline of the subject property along Jack Lake. The applicants are intending to initiate the process to purchase a section of the unopened road allowance from the Ministry of Natural Resources. The subject property is zoned to seasonal residential, and the existing dwelling, as you can see here in the site plan, it's actually the little dashed block that encroaches currently onto that the shoreline road allowance. So the zoning bylaw indicates that we cannot prevent the subject property from being utilized for its intended use, i.e. seasonal residential. And as that use existed prior to the date of the passing zoning bylaw, we do have to allow them to continue to use that use. However, the zoning bylaw definitions for lot lines references a standard waterfront lot, exactly having waterfront access on the shoreline. And in this instance, it actually doesn't have that. So the lot lines need to be defined as part of the zoning bylaw amendment application. So in summary, the township cannot prevent the applicant from redeveloping the existing seasonal recreational dwelling unit, but we need to define the lot lines on the property for them to request relief from. So the zoning bylaw amendment proposes to define the front, rear, and interior side lot lines of the subject property that will conform to the definitions that currently exist within our zoning bylaw. And that the zoning bylaw amendment will request relief from the front yard setback and interior side yard setback. The proposed dwelling will have a floor area of approximately 291 square meters, around 3,100 square feet, and the installation of a new septic system is required to accommodate the increased footprint of the new proposed seasonal recreational dwelling. So the zoning bylaw amendment application proposes to decrease the minimum required setback between the proposed dwelling and the northern interior side lot line from 6 meters to 4 meters. The zoning bylaw amendment application is also proposing to decrease the minimum front yard setback from 21.3 meters to 20.55 for the proposed dwelling. We did receive some public comments regarding the interior side yard setback. At the time that the notice was prepared, the interior side setback was being proposed at 1.82 meters. And following those public comments and recent communications with the applicant, the setback was amended to be increased to 4 meters, which is now reflected in the report. Next slide, please. So any proposed development on the subject property does face some constraints due to the underside lot fabric. There are hydro lines that are also crossing the property. There are some dense vegetation communities and steep slopes. We are seeing that recreational dwelling units located on adjacent or nearby properties are typically located within that 30-meter setback of Jack Lake, as many of them are actually facing some of those similar development constraints. However, the proposed dwelling, as part of this application, is actually located outside of the 30-meter setback from the high water mark, which does represent a very large improvement to the site, considering the current dwelling is, some of it is even located on the next slide, please. So the application does represent an improvement to the site through the increased setbacks to the shoreline. Following our review and assessment of the application within the context of the relevant land use policies, it is the township's planning opinion that the subject application conforms to the County of Peterborough's official plan, the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen's official plan, the zoning bylaw is amended and is consistent with the provincial planning statement. Planning staff can confirm that notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and mail notice was provided to all homeowners within 120 meters of the subject site, and a property sign was posted. There is a typo on the recommendation for the address, and staff is just requesting council to amend the recommendation to reflect the correct address of 124 Fire Road 85D. My apologies. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll start off. Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition of this application?
Yes, I am here to speak in opposition of this application.
Okay, Mr. Steinman. Dick Steinman, do you want to, what's your address?
134 Fire Road 85D. So I'm the property immediately to the north.
Okay. And you want to speak in opposition of it?
Correct.
Okay. Do you just want that on record now, or do you want to?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
You just want that on record then, or do you have something more to say to it on reason?
I do have some comments if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So as the owner of 134 Fire Road 85D, which is the property immediately to the north of 124 Fire Road 85D, I reject the design and ask the council to reject the design as proposed. I appreciate that they did come back and increase the side setback from under 2 meters to 4 meters. However, that's still a 33% reduction in the prescribed setbacks, which would potentially impact my property values. This property was purchased by the owners as an investment to redevelop and sell, and they did not even come and see this property prior to purchasing it, in their own words, when I spoke with them. So I don't see how it should become borne upon my property to have potential reductions in value or future redevelopment issues because of a reduced side setback to the north. I already have an incredibly close cottage north of me with a side setback. It's not centered on the lot. So I have no problem with them redeveloping it, and I welcome them building a beautiful cottage here on 124. But I just ask that they do it within the prescribed setback of 6 meters. And I understand as well that part of this issue is regarding the hydro corridor and the setback requirement to it. But again, it shouldn't be borne upon my lot and potential reduction in my property values or ability to redevelop in the future that they did not investigate the hydro corridor prior to purchase. So if they need to adjust the design of the plan, I just ask that at the end of the day, I'm happy for them to redevelop. I have no issues with their slight change to the front setback, but I ask that the 6 meter side setback to my property is honored.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Steinman.
No problem.
So right now, well, I'll finish this. Okay, is it for the second time? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition of this application?
Hi, my name is Gavin Muranaka, and I just wanted to speak. I don't know if it's in opposition, but just wanted to record some comments.
Okay, what's your address?
120 Fire Route 85D. So I'm the property on the south side.
Okay.
And I think my major thing is just generally, I don't have any issues with them building a cottage as well. I think that I certainly understand what they're up to. In terms of the side lot setback, my concern, I guess, is I'm not directly affected because I'm on the opposite side. Yet still, with all cottages in narrow properties, the side yard setback does provide a buffer for crowding and privacy and so forth. And so I guess I'm just not understanding the need to decrease the side yard setback. So thank you very much for listening to my comments.
Okay. All right. For the third time, is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Okay. All right then, so I'll turn it over to anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application. You see Kevin's screen lit up?
Yes, Mayor Martin, if it's appropriate, I would like to address council.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, council members, for the opportunity to speak to the zoning bylaw amendment application. I start off by thanking Samantha Deck for her work on this file. I had opportunity to listen to the two previous speakers expressing concerns with respect to the proposed side yard to the north property limit of now 4 meters. I have worked very closely with Mr. Evans and staff on the processing of this application. We acknowledge that there's an existing small-scale cottage built very close to the shoreline. It is proposed to be removed and placed entirely within the own limits of the property. As noted by Samantha Deck, Mr. Evans will be undertaking to acquire the portion on unopened road allowance currently owned by the Crown. That is a lengthy process, but it has, I can advise council that has started. The redevelopment will place the septic facility outside of the 30-meter setback from the shoreline, the building outside of the 30-meter setback from the shoreline. And as noted, the property is encumbered by an overhead hydro easement, of which Mr. Evans was fully aware of its being on the property as part of his purchase of the property itself. I did note Mr. Steinman's comments with respect to the side yard setback. I've had opportunity to visit the property that is Mr. Evans' property and considered the neighboring land uses. And I note that Mr. Steinman's cottage is a considerable distance north of the proposed Evans cottage and would be separated not only by a 4-meter buffer, but also by a significant vegetated buffer area. And thus, I do not share his concern as a professional planner that his property value would be reduced as a consequence of a modestly reduced side lot line setback. I have considered the staff report, Mayor Martin, council members, and I am in concurrence with Samantha Deck's recommendation insofar as official plan conformity, provincial policy statement consistency. I make myself available now in the event there are questions from the committee, and thank you again for the opportunity to address council.
Okay, maybe back to you. Okay, so for the second time, is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this application? Third time, anybody wishing to speak in favor? Okay, I'm going to open it up to council here. I can start off with this 4 meters setback. What is supposed to be the setback for, like?
Through you, Mayor, the interior side yard setback for seasonal residential is 6 meters.
Okay.
So it does request a small relief from the 6 meters to the 4. As I indicated, the time of the writing of the notices, it was 1.82 meters. And after receiving public comments, the applicant did increase that setback to request it to 4 meters. So it is a small reduction. But but as I identified, there are development constraints on the property. There is a significant hydro easement, and then you add in a 4.8 meter buffer from the hydro line. It does have a constraint on the property, as well as putting in a septic system as well. So that's why that interior side yard setback is being requested.
Okay. All right, any questions? So with new construction, I do have concerns too. If they can work within the setback, there's an opportunity. I know the hydro lines are there and everything, but it's one of those things for new construction. If you have to do it, you have to do it. But it's totally up to the group. Go ahead, Councillor Clement.
So through you, Mayor Martin. So Samantha, to get to the 6, does it mean decreasing the size of this new building? Would that make it work to the 6?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, absolutely. If they were to decrease the size of the proposed dwelling, but I can't necessarily speak on design considerations and things of that nature. That would have to come from Kevin and the homeowner. But they come to us with their application, the size of their proposed dwelling, their design considerations, and yes, absolutely. If it were to be decreased in size, it may be able to meet that, but they still do have constraints that they would still need to shift around. So I can't necessarily speak on the design of the building and things of that nature.
So the original space, the place that was there, what was the setback from the water originally? Like it sounds like it's set back farther than the original.
Absolutely. Can you go back? Yeah, so if you see sort of the portion that says proposed 2-meter wide walkway, there's a small dashed rectangle that outlines the existing dwelling. So it's actually encroaching onto the Crown land and is located actually quite close to that interior side yard setback, or close to that the lot to the south. So that is the existing dwelling location.
Okay.
So it's probably 18 to 20 meters from the shoreline, and the new proposed dwelling is located 40 meters from the high water mark. Okay.
All right. What's council's thought too?
To be Mayor, in your recommendation, they're going to purchase the Crown land. That was their intent. If it doesn't get purchased and is turned down, how does that affect the application?
Good question through you, Mayor. So that's why we're defining those lot lines. So as we can see in the currently the lot would have no definition of what is a front lot line, because it's not a standard waterfront lot, because it doesn't have shoreline, right? So as part of this application, it wouldn't necessarily change anything, because they would still have a front yard setback of 21.3 meters, now being requested to be reduced to 20.55. But the definition of the front lot line would still be the portion that they own currently along that western edge parallel to Jack Lake. So if the shoreline purchase doesn't go through, they still have the setbacks that have been defined in the zoning bylaw amendment. It wouldn't necessarily change anything.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so any go ahead.
Remember, so I think this question's for Kevin. So if you were working with them on did you work with them on the design of the actual cottage, Kevin?
Through Mayor Martin, I have worked very closely with Mr. Evans and his design team on design, configuration, and location of building throughout this application. Yes.
So it's going to be 3,100 square feet main floor. Would they be willing to decrease that in order to meet what we require?
Mayor Martin, not wanting to sound argumentative, but we have worked diligently to come up with a building that respects the building coverage regulations of the zoning bylaws, respects this waterfront, the very critical and important waterfront setback from the shoreline. We also had to design and place a septic area 30 meters from the shoreline and had to acknowledge the overhead hydro easement. So the short answer is our preference is to maintain this building program as presented. It works on this property. Reducing the building would represent yet another cost to the property owner. I certainly wouldn't be recommending it to my client that they would contemplate at this time a reduction in their building program. The planning staff have recommended the building design location as presented and as modified recently to show a 4-meter setback from the north lot line.
Yeah, like there is opportunity, there's some work to do around this. There is an opportunity to defer this and look at reconfiguring, or we can pass it as it is, so.
I just agree with
Mayor Martin, if I might add, I think I was, if I can, moving the building at its current design configuration further south presented further problems with the setback, the necessary setback from a structure to a septic facility. Moreover, it would potentially place the building within the hydro line easement. And thus, this configuration as placed was carefully and methodically placed by the design team, and that information has been thoroughly reviewed by your staff. The notion of a deferral, I'm not, again, it's not something I would be recommending. I noted, Mr. Chairman, on the previous application, there were side yard setbacks reduced to 4 meters on a cottage redevelopment project. So it was just approved in a previous iteration. And we're asking for only one side yard setback reduction, that is to the north. Thank you.
But there was no objections to the last one, so that's
Yeah.
the difference here. We got 2 neighbors that don't want it.
So when I wasn't talking about moving it, I was talking about downsizing the cottage a little bit to make it fit to the property
So with
size.
that, I'll make a motion to defer.
Is it possible to make one additional comment, or is it
Who's
the neighbor?
that's the person that's Jake Steinman, that's the one in opposition. Sure, go ahead.
Sure. Just as Kevin was allowed further comment. I went through a pretty substantial renovation on the property that I'm owning of about 10 years ago. And there was some objections to the location where it is. And I had to make some, concessions with the city to get my approvals. So I don't see why the owner of the property immediately south of me shouldn't have to make concessions, why I should see, Samantha, I respect you, but to say that it's a minor setback change, a minor change of the setback, it's a 33% change of the setback. Going from 6 to 4 is a 33% change. That is not, in my opinion, minor. And it should not be borne upon the property owners to the south and the north of the lot for the decisions and the needs of the new property owner making a new proposition. It should not be borne upon me. It should not be borne upon Gavin and future potential impacts of our property to have that setback reduced.
So rather than get going back and forward here, the opportunity to defer, it saves losing the application altogether. That's the only benefit of deferring rather than denying. And working at it a little more here to try and make something that works. But Kevin,
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, excuse me, Your Worship, if I might confirm, whilst, and I appreciate Mr. Steinman's comments, and I do appreciate being able to provide this remark, we will, Mr. Evans has confirmed with me that we will modify the conception, the building program to achieve the required north side lawn, side yard setback, thus avoiding a need for any deferral. And thus we would be in conformity with the zoning regulatory provisions of the bylaw.
So we would still need a new plan to come forward for the rezoning to go through. We would have to see that, I think, to move forward. Samantha?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Because the bylaw has already been written, I would have to come back with a new bylaw that would remove that. Sorry, I'm just
Yeah,
thinking right now. Yeah, to ensure that the dwelling unit is located at the 6 meter setback, I would need to take out the provision in the zoning bylaw amendment. If council could permit, I could bring it forward to maybe the next available council meeting. But that would be.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if it's possible, but I've dealt with these in the past where we've amended the bylaw and brought it back for passage at the end of the meeting so that the applicant can carry on forward. And we simply take it out the 4 meter.
Okay,
You have a motion for that then?
so what would the motion sound like here then?
And the side yard setback.
Just,
It would be, so you would be passing the bylaw just by just take out the 4 meter setback. They'll comply with the 6 meter and you would pass the rest of the bylaw.
okay,
Bring out the one back.
okay. As long as we're doing it right. You're moving that, Deputy Mayor Webb? And second by Councillor Doherty. Okay, so it'll be the 6 meter setback on the north side and it'll come back before the end of the meeting. Okay.
Just everyone, so I'm on work done.
Okay,
Butterfly for me.
so the bylaw can be passed as amended.
As amended, yeah, if Kevin is okay with that, and Jake as well as going back and amending that bylaw, that would be passed at the end of this meeting.
So. Yeah, I'm not seeing. I think that okay, Kevin?
Mayor Martin, I agree with the recommendation. It's appropriate and would be in support of same. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. And we've got some work to do. All in favor of the motion? And that's great. Okay. And our final here before we take a break is general housekeeping. Few things here.
Yes. Sorry, Lee, if you're able to go to the. Fine, thank you. Perfect. So the purpose and effect of this report is to present to council proposed housekeeping amendments to the Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen's comprehensive zoning bylaw as amended. And this includes some amendments to the definition of general provisions of sleeping cabins, as well as amending some special provisions for accessory buildings within the seasonal residential zone and island residential zone. Next slide, please. So you're seeing here just a redlined amendment to the definition of a sleeping cabin. So the purpose of this proposed amendment is to remove development standards such as size just from the definition, and to remove the indication that plumbing facilities are not permitted within sleeping cabins. Typically, development standards are under the actual general provisions of the zoning bylaw. We don't like to have them in definitions just because it does create some inconsistencies when looking for information. Is it in the definition of provision? So we're just taking out some of the provisions outlined in the definition and adding them to the special provisions. Next slide. So with that, these are the special provisions for the sleeping cabins, so section 4.40. So the purpose of this amendment is to propose the minimum square footage of 108 square feet or 10 square meters for sleeping cabins, and to allow plumbing facilities within a sleeping cabin. As we see here, we've just a red line revision showing the revisions to subsection C and the addition of subsection F. So township staff, we've been dealing with sleeping cabins that were built without building permits and have had to obtain planning relief after construction that do not comply with our zoning bylaw. And in addition, we've seen that sewage system reviews were not being completed to ensure that there is actually sufficient capacity to handle existing flows due to the additional habitable space. So the minimum size of sleeping cabins that's being proposed to be introduced is set to ensure that a building permit is submitted, ensure that the sleeping cabin will be constructed to Ontario Building Code standards, and to confirm that the proposed sleeping cabin does comply with the provisions of the zoning bylaw. This amendment will also ensure that a review of the sewage system is completed to ensure it's adequately sized for the additional daily flows, like I said, due to the habitable space within the sleeping cabin. Next slide, please. So this is the special provisions for accessory structures in the seasonal residential zone. So these are the current provisions that we see here in section 10.2.2. So our proposed amendment to this section is to remove the provision that limits lots within the seasonal residential zone to accessory structures with a maximum total floor area of 75% of the total floor area of the main building. I believe the intention of this provision at the time it was introduced was to limit the size of accessory structures on larger lots within the seasonal residential zone. However, we're seeing many Planning Act applications that we've received to request relief from this provision, as it does restrict development on properties with smaller dwelling units. So for example, a house within a seasonal residential zone that has a small cottage, say, I'll just say 1,000 square feet, it limits that any accessory structures would only be available at 750 square feet. So we're actually penalizing people with smaller cottages that just want some accessory space within the seasonal residential zone. A lot of our seasonal recreational uses need space for things like boats and things of that nature to deal with that use of the property. So we are requesting to remove the provision of the 75%. Next slide, please. And we're actually proposing, as I said, to remove that restriction. However, just knowing that we do still have other development constraints, such as our 15% lot coverage for lots within the seasonal residential zone and the 8% lot coverage for accessory structures. So those provisions will still remain. So thus we still do have appropriate land use planning controls and development standards within our zoning bylaw to ensure that we're not creating any overdevelopment within the shoreline properties. And that will not occur within the seasonal residential zone. So the proposed special provisions, the proposed amendment will continue to allow accessory structures located greater than 30 meters from the high water mark. And we still do have provision A and B that ensures that the following will apply, that they will have a maximum height of 7.5 meters and a minimum 9 meter setback from any lot line. So those two provisions are not being changed. Next slide, please. So this is very similar. We have that 75% rule in the island residential zone. So the proposed amendment to this section is to remove the provision that limits lots that are over 1.5 acres in size within the island residential zone to one accessory structure with a maximum total floor area of 75% of the total floor area of the main building. So as I mentioned, the proposed amendment removes the size restriction. However, we still have 4% for lot coverage within the island residential zone, and then the 8% lot coverage for accessory structures still does remain. There are still appropriate land use planning controls and development standards within the zoning bylaw to ensure that overdevelopment of the island properties will not occur. Next slide, please. So staff are just requesting today for council to receive the staff report, and then after hearing and receiving any public and council comments and making any appropriate amendments, staff will be directed to present a final housekeeping bylaw update at its next available session for consideration of the passing of the zoning bylaw. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for someone out there? Go ahead.
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive. By Deputy Mayor Webb. Second by Councillor Clement. Any questions? All in favor? And that's carried. So go ahead.
One question for you, Mayor Martin. So we just received that information.
Yeah.
So that means she doesn't make any of those changes, correct?
That's right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm sure there'll be lots of questions with waterfront people probably coming out to get clarification around these things. So, okay. All right then. Well, that's good then. So we just received that. So we just have one minor variance. If everybody's okay, we'll do the minor variance and then we'll take a break. So I'll look for a motion to go out of the zoning meeting, moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Doherty, all in favor, and that's carried. And now I'll look for a motion that we have to
In committee of adjustment?
new committee of adjustment. So moved by Councillor Clement, second by Councillor Doherty, all in favor, That's carried.
Thank you, Mayor Martin, members of the Committee of Adjustment. I'll call this public meeting to order and remind the members of the committee of the requirement to disclose any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof if the occasion arises. This public meeting is held under Section 45 of the Planning Act and its regulations, and just turn it over to Samantha for their 1-year minor variance.
Thank you very much. This is the minor variance application A1524 for 65 by Route 85G. It was previously a water access only property. Subject property is located on Jack Lake and is approximately 0.7 acres in size. Next slide, please. As you may recall, this application was actually brought forth to the Committee of Adjustment on December 17th, 2024, and was ultimately deferred upon the request of the property owners until the final design of the accessory structure was completed. So the design now has been completed, and we do have a revised application that seeks to request relief to facilitate the addition of a second story onto an existing accessory structure. The minor variance application proposes to permit an increase in the maximum required height of an accessory structure from 4.5 meters or 15 feet to 8.9 meters to 29.2 feet. So then a slight increase from the original application that was brought forth in December. That was 8.6 meters. So just a 1-foot increase from that original proposed application. Funny enough, this is also, the variance is also requesting to increase the total floor area of the accessory structures from 75%, which we just talked about, to 148%, which does represent a slight increase from the original application. So just a side note, the housekeeping amendment is to propose to remove that, but it's still in effect, so we do have to request relief from that as of this current moment. Next slide, please. So the increase in height from the original application is attributed to the removal of the roof soffit for the proposed second story addition. So this is just a design rendering showing the proposed structure. So the increase in the maximum total floor area in relation to the original application is due to a proposed increase in the second story floor area. Kind of hard to see, but it just slightly overhangs over, there's a wood storage area on the one side. So that just does reflect the increase in that proposed floor area, which is why there's that increase from the 148% but from the original 140%. Next slide, please. So this is just photos of the existing accessory structure. So the intention of the second story addition onto the accessory structure is proposed to enable the installation of a solar PV system and provide an amenity area above the garage. This will contribute to the creation of a net zero dwelling utilizing a more environmentally sustainable approach. The height variance is required to provide improved access to sunlight in lieu of the removal of trees or undertaking a complete redevelopment of the property. Next slide, please. So planning staff have reviewed the application in accordance with the applicable planning legislation and policies, including the provincial planning statement, official plan and zoning bylaw. Planning staff can confirm the application is consistent with section 45 subsection 1 of the Planning Act, that the application meets the intent of the official plan, meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, is desirable and appropriate, and is minor in nature. Planning staff can confirm that notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and mail notice was provided to all homeowners within 60 meters of the subject site, and a property sign is posted. As the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance and conforms to the PCS, it is the recommendation of this report that the application be approved. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the report, Samantha. Is the applicant or their agent present with us today?
Yeah, I'm here, Neil Murray, the owner, applicant.
Sorry, can you just state your name there, sir?
Yes, it's Neil Murray. I'm the owner and applicant.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Murray?
No, I don't. Samantha said it all pretty well, so nothing to add.
Thank you. Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Second time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this application? Is there anyone present or online wishing to speak in favor of the application? Second time, anyone in favor? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Hearing no comments, I'll open up the floor for the members to the committee for any questions or a motion. Councillor Clement.
Through you, Chair. Samantha, so I remember this one because of the solar. I was really interested in it. I think it's great. So the rendered drawing of the big brown, one, that's not what this is gonna look like, is it? It is gonna look like that. So the yellow cottage that's there now, he's redoing it and built, or the garage, he's gonna rebuild it to look like the other drawing. Okay. So, but the floor space itself will remain the same of the original cottage or the garage?
Yeah. Through you, Mary. So yes, if you could go back to just the site plan maybe. So the actual ground floor area is not changing. They're just adding a second story, and there's just gonna be a small overhang over like a wood storage area. So the look of the accessory structure appears to be intended to change. However, the actual ground floor area is not changing. It's just increasing and second floor, or sorry, the gross floor area is changing, ground floor area is not changing.
So the footprint will be the same.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
All right,
Councillor Clement,
all right, I'm willing to pass that then.
we have a motion to approve the recommendation from Councillor Clement. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
And he's staying with the solar.
Neil, if you wanted to just maybe touch on the solar aspect, that is still the intent of the proposed accessory structure.
Sorry, is there a question for me there? I couldn't hear.
Yeah, council is just ensuring that it is still the intent to include a solar PV system on the proposed accessory structure.
Yeah, the south side of the roof has been designed and sized for 11 kilowatt PV array already.
Thank you. Okay, so we got a seconder, moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Mayor Martin. Comments or questions? Councillor Doherty.
He says he's going to put solar in, but if he doesn't, what happens? Because we're approving it because of the height, because of the solar system. So if he elects not to do it, it's not an issue of the approval that the install is. So we're just approving it based on, I guess, faith.
So just for clarification, Councillor Clement, are you approving the recommendation as it's written?
Yes.
Okay, which has nothing to do, I think, with solar, right? So, okay, yeah, no, understood. I'm just for clarification from Councillor Doherty. The seconder is okay with that?
Yeah.
Mover and seconder. Any more comments or questions on the motion? All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you very much for that, Samantha. Now I'll just need a motion to adjourn our public meeting and return to the regular council meeting. So moved by Councillor Clement, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? Thank you very much. Mayor Martin, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'm gonna say we take a 10-minute break here, or we come back at 25 after 11. So look for a recess. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? Carried.
Maybe for the virtual audience.
Okay, so we're back into our meeting. I'll look for a motion to resume. Moved by Councillor Clement, second by Councillor Doherty, all in favor. That's carried. We're moving into planning reports. You're with us for a while today, Samantha.
Sure.
So, first report here, holding provision.
I don't have anything to add. This is a removal of a holding provision just to ensure that an agreement. We didn't register that.
Motion approved, sorry.
Yeah, so moved by Deputy Mayor Webb that we move the recommendation, second by Councillor Doherty.
I'm sorry.
All in favor? And that's carried. The next item here is another holding provision. Okay.
Nothing further to add.
Okay, so removing a holding provision. Recommendation is here. We want to move it. Moved by Councillor Flagler, second by Councillor Clement, all in favor. That's carried. Next consent application, March. Application is 2225.
Yes. So this is a consent application B 2225 for County Road 47. Subject property compromises approximately 0.78 hectares or 1.9 acres in size with road frontage on County Road 47. Next slide, please. The purpose of the consent application is to sever the property to create one new vacant residential lot on County Road 47. The property itself is vacant now, so it would actually have two properties, but we're just severing one. So if approved, the lot to be created will compromise approximately 4 hectares or almost an acre in size with approximately 52 meters of road frontage on County Road 47. The retained parcel will compromise approximately 0.4 hectares as well, but also maintaining 45 meters of road frontage on County Road 47. Next slide, please. This came in a little faint, but the subject property is currently designated as rural in the official plan and zoned as rural as well. And the subject lands do contain a hydrologic feature in the form of an unevaluated wetland. So as you can see here, the yellow is the boundary of the wetland, and there is a dashed line, a red dashed line that does show a development setback from that. So as a result, the applicants did retain the services of an environmental consultant, GHD, just to conduct a wetland delineation to determine exactly the extent of the wetland on the severed parcel. And the report does conclude that there is a wetland present and a portion of the wetland does extend onto the severed lands. However, the report outlines the construction of a single family dwelling will not have an impact on the wetland, provided the recommendations are implemented throughout the development process. There does appear to be a development building envelope on the property, and it's been included as a condition of consent to show a site plan to show exactly that they can build a dwelling, septic and well on the property. So it is based on the township's review of the subject application, together with the supporting material. It is the township's planning opinion that the proposed consent conforms to the policies of the township official plan, as well as complies with the requirement of the township's zoning bylaw. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, so the recommendation is here. What's your thoughts? Deputy Mayor.
Just a question, the County Peterborough wetland mapping that we have on here, it has that entire property is, so the study that was done, that's basically what we're going off now, that's newer information.
Yes,
Okay.
through you, Mary. Yes, so they did the delineation because they knew there was wetland on the property. The mapping is unevaluated wetland, so they did just go ahead by themselves and hire a consultant to ensure exactly where the wetland was, because it does show quite differently on the county GIS. So that delineation is shown in that site plan. It's kind of hard to see, but that is actually where the wetland has been shown to be present.
Okay,
thank you. So I'll probably be dealing with it in the next stage. So I know we'll be asking that question at the next stage. So thank you.
okay, so there is a recommendation here. Does anybody want to make a recommendation? Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Flagler. Any other questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Next report, the consent application.
Yes, this is consent application B 2525 for 251 and 331 Mile of Memories Road. The purpose of the consent application is to facilitate a lot addition for the construction of an accessory structure. Next slide, please. So if approved, the consent application will have the effect of severing off 0.23 hectares or half an acre of land from 251 Mile of Memories Road to be added to the adjacent parcel 331 Mile of Memories Road. This would have the effect of increasing the square footage of the benefiting lot from 0.7 hectares or 0.42 acres to 0.4 acres, almost an acre in size. As identified, the intention of the lot addition is to provide additional lands for the benefiting parcel to construct an accessory structure. Based on the township's review of the subject application, together with the supporting material is the township's planning opinion, the proposed consent conforms to the policies of the township official plan, as well as complies with the requirements of the township zoning bylaw.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb that we move the recommendation, second by Councillor Doherty. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, next, another consent application from Freer.
Yes, this is consent application B 3225 for 11 and 14 Belmont Lakes Big Island. The purpose of the consent application B 3225 is to facilitate a lot addition application. No new development is being proposed as part of the consent application at this time. Next slide, please. So if approved, the consent application would have the effect of severing off 0.1 hectares or 0.25 acres of land from 11 Belmont Lake Big Island to be added to the adjacent parcel of 14 Belmont Lake Big Island. This will have the effect of increasing the lot area of the benefiting lot from approximately 0.2 hectares or 0.5 acres to 0.3 hectares, 0.75 acres. Based on the township's review of the subject application together with the supporting material, it is the township's planning opinion that proposed consent conforms to the policies of the official plan as well as complies with the requirements of the township zoning bylaw. Happy to answer questions.
Take a breath. Okay, Councilor Clement, go ahead.
Go through your memory. So Samantha, the bottom 14, it's the one that's going to become larger, the whole bottom half?
Yes, through Mary. Yeah, so that the piece in red is severed and that's being added to 14 just to the west of it, and the retained is outlined in green.
Okay. And is there a building on 14 right now?
They're both currently constructed with cottages.
Okay, no,
You're moving
I'll
it?
pass the motion, yeah.
Okay, moved by Councilor Clement. Is there a seconder for that?
I have a question.
Sure.
What's the purpose of this?
It wasn't identified, sorry, through you, Mayor, it wasn't identified in the application. They might just need additional space. Unsure at this time. No development is being proposed. So as we saw in the previous application, they said that their intent is to build an accessory structure. As part of this, it might just be for more recreational space. It was not identified in the application.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, do you have a seconder for the? Okay, second by Councilor Doherty. Any other questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Samantha?
Pardon?
Just a few words
Oh, yeah. I'm left on stage.
back.
Do I gotta go? Oh, do you want me to go back for the
No,
no.
no.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm tired.
staff reports for information. We have two staff reports for information here. One was Public Works, April department update. And the other is Department Rec, April update. So, is there any questions with those reports? Take a motion to receive them. Okay, moved by Councilor Doherty, second by Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. So I'll move into the follow-up action staff reports, backwards there, report with regards to the, budget timetable. So, Lionel, I don't know if you want to come up if you have anything to add to your report. Looks good there. Would be nice to get it on earlier.
Sure, I don't really have anything to add, but I think the general reasoning behind the timing is just to provide council with the ability, if they so chose, to potentially have the budget passed before 2026 starts. So this timetable would, if we could get a couple of meetings in late December, would enable that.
Okay. Right, so the timetable before you here, any questions on the timetable?
I'll just comment, I'll make a motion to approve it and just thank Lana for all the work on this. I think over the last couple of years, he's put in a lot of hard work on this in terms of helping us streamline this, get it a little bit moved up in the calendar because we were always chasing ourselves around Christmas time. So thank you for all the hard work you and Kayla and everybody in the department have done. Line.
Okay, so you're moving.
Yeah.
The recommendation, second by Councilor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks, Lionel. Appointment for administrative students for bylaw enforcement.
Pretty Mayor, not much more to add, just we've had Ava here now, she's doing a great job, and this will just put her lawfully placed if we need her to go issue a parking ticket or simply drive by and take a picture or something for us.
Okay, Any questions? You can move that?
Yep.
Okay, moved by Councillor Doherty. With second by Deputy Mayor Webb. Any questions?
You're gonna become familiar with all the four-letter words around.
Get the gun. Okay, mover, seconder, all in favor, and that's carried. The next, rural links. Travis,
Through you again, Mayor, nothing much more to add, just, this was we sent a letter out to the owner of Rural Links with a deadline of May 1st. He has now retained a surveyor. It's gonna take a little bit longer, so just looking for an extension on that.
all right, so recommendations there. Councillor Doherty, you're moving that?
Right on.
Second by Councillor Clement. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good job. Great. Next item on here, Josh, with regards to then held on municipal property for candidate.
Motion to approve the recommendation. Hello.
Okay, that's moved by Deb and second by Hart. All in favor? Carried. Next, water sewer rate. How you're running out. So, yeah. So we do have a report before us with regards to the treasurer and we're trying to bring the water rates up to where they should be. Do you have anything?
Sure, just to summarize briefly, so the asset management program has really put into clear focus what HBM and all the other municipalities in Ontario have to deal with in terms of their aging infrastructure. The drinking water financial plan, the last one that was done predated the asset management plan and the most recent presentations by SEMA and ACWA. So its recommendations for what we'll need to fund these areas is no doubt somewhat light. So the general goal of this report and the recommendations are to ensure that the sewer and water programs are self-funded so that the users are the ones who are actually funding the program. And not only would this imply a certain amount of equity, but it also minimizes the need for debt and potentially eliminates the need for debt, which we all know adds a great deal of cost ultimately to taxpayers.
Okay, so this is always a tough one. This is, you know, in the past, it seems like a lot of times there's only one person or two people on here that actually get water bills, and so we hear from them usually. But it is something that it's one of those things. If you don't keep up with it, you end up spiking it a lot more than what it needs to be. So, so there is a recommendation here, which council is
Just a comment. I'm not really thrilled about probably what we're gonna have to do here today in terms of upping these rates. More around where we're gonna go in the future. We've had discussions. I know we've had I don't know if we got into the test wells up here, but looking at possibly new wells. Basically what I'd like to come out of this here today is to have staff look at our water situation in terms of more so the well 3 over here, our allocation costs, like our yearly allocation costs towards this stuff, because I think we're gonna have to get some of this in order moving forward. Obviously, the rates are gonna have to go up, so this is what we'll deal with today, but on a grander scheme, as I said, I think we might be putting money into some things in water where we don't need to be, right? Or we could spend that money better in terms of moving to different things. So I'd like to kind of have a review of that, maybe starting with over here with well 3 in terms of what the cost is there for a well that we're really not using at all. So, and maybe that can, in the future, slow down, you know, these rates going up. But in terms of what's there, I'll just leave it to the rest of council in terms of hear what they have to say about the rates. You go first.
Through you, Mayor Martin. Thank you for the report, Lyle. I understand, on 2024, what was the increase on the water rates for 2024?
You could share, is this on a dollar basis or?
Percentage you can?
Okay, the increase in 2024 was 4%.
Okay. So going forward with the 5% increase, is that 5% increase every year for how many years?
Through chair, I mean, we would have probably approximately 3 to 4 years to get to where this study kind of recommended us being if we kept it around the 4 to 5%. What I'm hoping is that the next asset management study that's due in 2025 will also provide us with some more information and perhaps allow us to slow down that rate increase even quicker. But right now, using this last study for the water rate increases and just anecdotally thinking about those last couple of presentations by SEMA and Ottawa, I don't think that this study actually included that, say, $5 million that they spoke about that needs to be done very quickly. And the 14 million we can kind of spread out over the next 10 to 15 years. So it's hard to say. Like I think with what we know right now, I would say another few years and hopefully it will begin to taper off to something a little bit more manageable.
One more question.
Yeah.
Okay, so our water rates are not up to par, as what you have just said. And I believe council did not do any increases for the 3 to 4 years, right? The gap between 2020 and 2024. So that is why we're in the spot right now, correct?
Future, that is a big reason why in the previous study that I think ended in 2021, it hadn't been actually followed completely either. So I'd say the biggest reason would be those COVID years and the decision to not put those increases into play, but there was a carryover from the previous 5 years that ended in 2019 as well. So it's been a long-standing sort of road that I guess this would just be, okay, we haven't increased it by the amount that was recommended. Let's kind of do the work now and get it to where it needs to be. Hopefully we just kind of follow that plan.
Thank you, Lionel.
So this increase is for 2025 and then it'll come back again next year.
One more question. So what will be the rates for the taxpayers? Because right now I know what my water bill is. We all know what our water bill is. Is it like 130 something now? Is that my understanding of it?
133.
133. Okay, thank you. Okay.
I think we're 127 now, aren't we?
Yeah, we're
so-
28, I can't
Yeah,
remember.
so. Something up there.
Okay, all right.
All right, any other questions? So the recommendation is here that move it.
You know what? Remember, we're gonna have to, we've got to catch up. I pay, Bev pays, you pay. Yeah, we're gonna have to. I mean, what else are we gonna do?
Build more houses.
Yes.
That's what we
Yeah.
need to do.
Yes.
Because otherwise we're gonna be back here every year doing the same thing, right? So I think we really need to get going on the housing front, but okay, I'll second it.
Second.
I'll wait and vote on it the next time it comes back.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. Next item. Thank you, Lionel.
Thanks, Lionel.
Family position, so. Been working on this for quite a while. There's a recommendation in here. Yeah, the only part I would have liked to have seen in the resolution was a date or a time that we start the process of our own medical center to go with this. Just a process at least. Right now, it just says that we do one, but it doesn't have any timeline on it. So I would have liked to have seen that added. Other than that, I do support the recommendation if that's in there. So just with some timelines and start the process of, you know, site selection and whatever. So, Councillor Doherty, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Okay. Without the other, okay?
I think. Do you remember, so can I make a comment too?
Yeah.
So I'll second it. I do think we do need to work towards that going down the line. You're right, I think we can come back to staff and talk. For now, we need to get moving. People want us to do this, so.
All right, then, any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Okay, next item here is the voting for the next election methods here, so recommendation, Bob, do you want to do anything to Bob or Leah?
It's me. Leo will be next time. Yes, good morning, through you, Mayor Martin. So this report presents two options for the voting method for our next municipal election, which will be held on October 26th, 2026. So we could go exclusively with electronic voting, being internet and telephone, or we could add paper ballot option as well.
Okay.
So very quickly, just I'll go with option 2. I think it's vital for us to maintain that in-person voting for certain members of our community. I know that number's dwindling with every election, but there are still out there, and voting is everyone's right. So it's up to us to make it, you know, feasible that they can do it the way they would like. So I would go with make a motion to go with option 2. Then, please.
Okay, so moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Doherty. All in favor of the motion? That's carried.
Dance in the parade.
Okay, so that's the end of that area. Now we'll move into correspondence. We have 2 action items here. So the first is Belmont Lake Regatta. With regards to some closures, we do this all the time. So moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Flagler. All in favor? Oh, comment, just a second, sorry, comment.
Just a clarification, there's a question there about the roadway. Belmont Lake Cottage Association is looking for council to relief from the municipal parking bylaw for Mile Memories roadway. So staff would recommend one side of the road.
Oh, yeah.
For parking.
Yeah.
So if we could add that to the motion.
And could we have? Well, I imagine we'll be in contact with them about that before the event, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so was that okay with the mover
Yep.
seconder that added into it?
Yep.
Okay. All right then, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and the next item here is Ms. Watson tribute parade. So that's
Ocean, whatever.
yeah, June 14th. So that's moved.
I do whatever. And just for, I don't know, because I don't, we're on camera, so I don't know maybe if it's gonna be a surprise, but are we planning on doing anything for that event, or I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just saying maybe that's for a discussion for council.
I know the firemen have been doing all the
okay.
work on it,
Yep.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, that's who I think Ms. spoke to the fire department. So anyways, yeah, so motion to support the parade or whatever, go ahead with it. Moved by Councillor Flagler, Bob.
So through you, Mayor Martin, so just in the letter, it does indicate that council member participation is requested, but it's not mandatory.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll do our best. Okay, so that's who moved? Sorry, Deb moved that?
No.
Art did.
Art did.
It doesn't matter.
Sorry, what do you got there, Bob?
Heart and Bev.
There you
Yeah.
go. That's
Okay.
good.
All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, we have an action item there with regards to Havelock Seniors newsletter. Looking to receive that, if there's no question, receive it. Okay, moved by Councillor Doherty, seconded by Councillor Clement, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, committee liaison reports. We have one report or county, there wasn't much out of there.
I'll save it for the next meeting.
Okay. All right then, so nothing for there, but we'll move into the activity reports, and Kathy, you have something in regards to the library.
Oh, this library.
This library.
What, library?
Just minutes from the library.
Any questions?
Questions? Motion to receive the minutes? Okay, Art and Bev,
Yeah.
all in favor? And that's carried. Right then. I don't have any written notice of motion for me. Is there any oral notice of motion for today's meetings? Being none. Other business. And this is, I have one thing for other business, and that's with regards to Kathy, you had something on the shoreline brochure.
So through you, Mayor Martin, and thank you for your patience, everyone. So this is the brochure that between the lake and our staff, they've completed. It was pointed out that I do need to flip it around. When you fold it, it's upside down. I do apologize, I'll get that fixed. So I'd like your approval to go ahead and tell them it's okay. We will be printing some off in-house. They've asked for approximately 300, which is less than a ream of paper, so.
Okay. All right then.
Question, I think that are the environmental grant, or how is it being funded? We talked about it, but
It was environmental, wasn't it?
just a question.
Whatever council likes.
Could take that out of
A
there.
paper fund. If it's only a ream of paper. Yeah, whatever everybody wants, that's fine.
So how do you? So how would you like it to, where would you like it, the money to come from? So you can use the environmental.
Okay, environmental is fine.
That's $400.
No, it's maybe that much, a ream of papers and $1 or something, isn't it?
No, if we were to charge this out as per our fees and charges bylaw, it's 25 cents a copy.
Who is it?
So.
Sorry.
Something like that, about $100.
$100, okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right then, so. Mover and seconder.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Okay.
With your
Gary?
comment, I
Yeah.
spoke with Councilor Clement earlier. I think it's a very good idea. We're looking to add to it. Actually, I know in our Parks Committee, we're looking at doing a deep dive here in the summer on invasive species. There's knotweed and a few others kicking around the area, and I'm sure they're making their way out to the lakes. So this is a very good start, very well done. But we might be looking to add maybe a page or two to this with invasive species coming up for next year, if that would be okay with you.
From that.
Thank you. I'll move that then.
Okay, move. All right, Art. Second, Gary seconded. Yeah,
I did.
all in favor? And that's carried. But just one other thing, we're just gonna do a draw here for the, we'll get Gary and. Just give me a moment, we'll do the, and then we'll do the.
Local draw.
Long down.
Like thinking.
Yeah.
So this is the first of our annual HVM shop contest. Our top three, they happen to be retailers. The first is Foodland, and the second is Guardian Pharmacy. And there's actually a 5-way tie for third, so we won't go into that. Together though, of the purchases that related to this particular contest, it was $766, fantastic. And who would like to do the honors today?
Bev said she loved it.
Thank you.
I don't know, I just did it. All right. What do you have? I got two. Perfect. Thank you. The winner of today's contest is Rosetta Goff.
for purchase at Foodland.
Good.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay. We'll move into bylaws here. We got a lot of them. So the first part bylaw here is 2025-034 Davis. For the zoning bylaws amendment.
You one or all?
I think I gotta do them separate because one of them is different, right, Bob?
Yep.
Yeah, so moved by Hart, second by Gary, all in favor? Gary. The next is Evans. Is that the one? No. Yeah,
That's the amended one.
That's the amended one, so.
With the side yard setback.
So it's to pass this with the amendment.
6 meters.
As amended to
Okay, moved by Kathy, second by Bev. Favor? That's carried. And bylaw to remove the hold, bylaw 2025-36. Moved by Jerry, second by Hart, all in favor. Jerry. Bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute environmental impact mitigation measures for this bylaw 2025-037. Moved by Kathy, second by Hart. All in favor. Carried. Bylaw 2025-038, bylaw to amend by removing the holding symbol, changing zone category for mid-7. Moved by Kathy, second by Jerry. All in favor. Carried. Next is 2025-039, bylaw to appoint temporary bylaw enforcement officer. Moved by Jerry, second by Bev, all in favor. Carries. 2025-040, bylaw to appoint deputy division registrar, deputy issues for marriage licenses by for the delegation of the duty and responsibility. Moved by Art, second by Kathy. All in favor. Carried. And bylaw to authorize contribution agreement with the Township of Asphodel, Norway with regards to the medical on 2025-041. Anything? Okay, Kathy, Gary, all in favor? That's Gary. It's a closed session held under section 239-2B.
That one.
That's
Cemetery board. We got the one besides.
yeah, and closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we'll do that now. We'll
Yeah,
move
that's what I'm
in-
saying.
So we'll move into closed and get that done.
Okay.
So under section 239-2B, so we'll go into close, moved by Hart, second by Kathy, all in favor, that's carried. Anyone take?
Oh. Yulia. And just all we need is confirming bylaw, Bob?
Yes, that's
First.
correct.
Confirmation bylaw?
Yep.
And training.
Even a broken clock's right twice a day, Jerry. Your count majority, Councillor Clement, all in favor, thank you. And a motion to adjourn, Councillor Flagler. And Councillor Doherty, all in favor. Thank you very much.